Hello everyone, and welcome to another in my introduction to business video tutorials. And in this lesson I'll be talking about operations management and quality. Now, all goods and services that have production systems have their own production processes which provide utility by adding customer value into these processes. Now, customers or companies with different business strategies are going to be best served by having different operations capabilities in their organization. Now, even these very similar and competing businesses in the market can produce output and manage their quality with very completely different production systems employed in their organizations. So over the next several minutes, I'm going to dedicate this to the study of operations and quality within both the manufacturing and the service sectors in our global market. I'm going to try to explain the meaning of the term production, and this is synonymous a lot of times with the term operations. And I'll try to describe the three kinds of utility that operation processes are going to provide. Also try to explain how companies with different business strategies are going to be best served by having different operational capabilities, and identify some of the major factors considered in our overall operations planning. Also try to discuss the information in the four kinds of operation schedules. And those are going to be the master operation schedules, the detailed schedule, staff schedule, and product schedule. And then we'll try to identify activities that are involved in operations control. Some of these terms are probably very familiar to you, and if they're not familiar, I hope you will find a lot of information during this video lecture. I'm also going to look at different activities and underlying objectives involved in the TQM or total quality management, and explain how a supply chain strategy differs from our traditional strategies for coordinating operations among our firms. Let's go ahead and jump in now and take a look at that term I introduced earlier at the beginning called operations. Like I said, you will also hear this called production. And very easily, this is just a term that refers to all the activities that are involved in making an organization's products or goods and services, whatever the case may be, for its end customers. And throughout here we'll talk a little bit of difference between service and goods, but just think about this to begin with, that service operations, or if we're using the term production, service production, these are going to provide tangible and intangible services. Firms that only make tangible products are going to be engaged in activities for goods operations or goods production. So hopefully you can see that there is a difference between service and goods, and get used to hearing the terms used interchangeably between operations and production. In business, we can't help but use these terms all the time, products and goods. Now, historically, agriculture was the dominant sector in the early years here in the United States. But when manufacturing grew, we had to becoming the economic backbone from the 19th century into the mid 20th century. It was kind of a big growth change after that agricultural boom. After this mid 20th century era, we then started to see that services began a rapid climb in economic importance in terms of both number of employees and percentage of GDP, or gross domestic product. And if you recall, GDP is the value of all the goods and services produced by an economy. And this is going to exclude any type of foreign income. Now, the service sector's greatest percentage of GDP has hovered above 65%, while the smaller 11% of the workforce in goods producing jobs produced 32% of our overall national income. Hopefully you can see the importance of understanding what products are, what goods are, what services are. So just make sure you get a lot of these terms, and just remember that these are kind of the backbone of all of the things. We're either producing products and goods, or we're providing services, and what we're doing is helping with the GDP, or gross domestic product. And that traditionally in our U.S. history, we produced a lot of goods, whereas after the mid-20th century, that's when services become a very great economic importance to both the number of employees in the market as well as the percentage being added to our gross domestic product, or GDP. Now, both services and goods provide consumers with utility. And utility is the ability of a product to satisfy a human want or a human need. Thus, it's adding customer value in terms of form, time, and place. Form utility is created merely through transforming our raw materials into some type of finished good. Time utility is created when marketers make products available when the customers are wanting those products. And then place utility is created when products are made available where they are convenient for those customers. Now, operations management is the systematic direction and control of the processes that transform resources into those finished services and goods that create the value and provide benefits to our customers. So really easily, remember that utility is that ability of a product to satisfy our human wants and needs and adding customer value. Now, another term here is operations management, and this is that systematic direction to control the process that transforms the resources into those finished services and goods. Operations managers are going to be responsible for ensuring that the operations activities create those values and provide benefits to our customers. So those three pieces are very critical to creating value through our overall operations. So a little example here is that, remember, production makes products available. So by converting raw materials and human skills into finished goods and services, production creates form utility, as when your movie theater combines building materials, theater seats, and projection equipment to create the overall movie environment. So when a theater offers those midday or afternoon and evening shows 7 days a week, it creates a time utility. So it's added customer value by making products available when we as customers, those moviegoers, want to see those movies, because they've combined all of those pieces into the environment and then use that to create that utility to have that customer value, and in this form of time utility, available to us for when we want to watch a movie. All the pieces must come together. Now in this example here, this is just how we take resources and transform them through a process to get the output. And this is basic when it comes to any process. We are going to have inputs and we're going to have outputs. So here you can see that this is going to show us how operation managers, who we discussed earlier, draw up plans to transform those resources into products for the customers. First, they're going to bring the basic resources such as knowledge, physical, whether it be materials or people. Then we're going to bring in and use another resource known as information. We're going to take the resources such as equipment, the customer, different human skills. We're going to apply those to these different activities and put them into very effective use in a facility where the service is provided, or if we're making physical goods, are going to be produced. Now, as demand for our product increases, operation managers are going to schedule and control the work that's needed to produce the required amount of those outputs, which once again is the product or services that we are providing. And then finally, those managers are going to control costs. We're going to control the quality levels, control our inventory, as well as our facilities and our equipment. When I say we as the operation managers, this can vary based on the size of the organization. Now, in some small businesses, such as with an entrepreneurship or sole proprietorship, that operations manager is just going to be a single individual. So it all is going to transform based on the size of the organization and the structure of the organization. But the process is pretty much the same. Planning, organizing, scheduling, controlling to fulfill the needs of our customers through whatever inputs we have available to us to make that product or provide that service, and then take all that information and be able to deliver those goods and services, process our materials, utilize our human resources, all to get those outputs and control our costs and control our quality so that we have happy customers. Let's talk a little bit about the differences between services and goods manufacturing. Now, both service and manufacturing operations transform raw materials into our finished products. In service operations, finished products are not things, but are the people with needs, and have those needs been met and the possessions serviced. Now, there are 4 aspects of service operations that can make such operations more complicated than simple goods production. First one here is interacting with customers. Manufacturing operations focus on physical goods, whereas service operations are a combination of goods and services. Services can be intangible and unstorable. Intangibility refers to the untouchable value consumers receive in the form of pleasure, gratification, or a feeling of safety. Unstorability refers to the idea that if a service isn't used when available, it's usually going to be wasted. This third aspect here, the customer's presence in the operations process. Service operations often acknowledge the customer as part of the service transaction itself, since service operations transform customers or their possessions. And lastly, the intangible count for service quality. Customers use different measures to judge services and goods because services include intangibles, not just those physical objects. Quality of work and quality of service are not necessarily going to be the same thing. Now let's talk about operation processes. An operation process is a set of methods and technologies used in the production of goods and services. Got 2 listed here. And when we talk about these, we're going to talk about the goods production process, those make-to-order versus make-to-stock processes. A make-to-order operation makes one-of-a-kind products according to customer service or customer specifications. A made-to-stock operation produces standardized products in large quantities. Now, sometimes you'll see these terms referred to as push and pull. The make-to-stock or made-to-order, just kind of know the difference. That make-to-stock, we're going to produce large quantities, and we're just pushing those out there for everyone. Now, the make-to-order operations, this is where our customer is specifying and needs it, so we're going to make it to their order. We're going to pull, the customer's pulling and saying, hey, give me this, give me this. Whereas in make-to-stock, we're just going ahead and pushing them out there, and the customers can get them as needed. Now, the second one we'll talk about here is service production processes, whether it's the extent of customer contact, and there's 2 different types there. We have our high contact systems, and we have our low contact systems. In low contact systems, such as mail sorting office, customers do not have to be present while the service transaction is being performed. Whereas in a high contact system, such as let's say a city metro system, the customer must be part of the service. Managers therefore will be concerned with the issue of cleanliness, punctuality, and the usability of, let's say, a ticket kiosk that's in that metro system for the customers to get their ticket. So low contact and high contact system. High contact, customers have to be part of the system. Low contact, buyer doesn't have to be present during the transaction at all. Now, companies go about selecting the kind of production that's best for their business based on the firm's larger overall business strategy. They aim to adopt the kind of production that achieves that strategy in the most efficient way possible. And they need to be able to do that well to outperform any type of competition they might have. And there are many factors that are going to occur and that we are going to face as managers, and there's many phases of production operations. Over time, you as managers are going to learn over and how to achieve those and be more competent in how your operations work. Now, you recall I've mentioned before that managers from several different departments are going to contribute to the firm's decision about operations management. Now, this is a process of logical steps upon which the success of the organization is going to depend. The overall business plan provides guidance for long-term operation plans, not just those short-term. And when we're planning our operations for this, there are three main types that we're going to talk about. That's capacity, location, and layout planning. Capacity planning is the amount of, if you just want to talk about capacity in general, this is the amount of a product that a company can produce under normal working conditions. And a firm's capacity is going to depend on how many people it employs and the number and size of its facilities. In operations, we want to match the capacity to our demand. So that is just how we're going to plan for our capacity. We want to match the demand. Location planning. Facility location affects production costs and flexibility. Depending on the site of its facility for an organization, a company may either be capable of producing a low-cost product, or it may find itself at a relative cost disadvantage. Good production can be located where the economics work most favorably. Services, though, must be located near the end customers. And with layout planning, the physical location, or the floor plan, you might say, determines whether an organization can respond quickly and efficiently to customer requests for additional or even different products and find themselves unable to match competitors' speed and convenience. Now, with this layout planning, a couple different layouts we'll talk about. We have the process layout. This is in a process layout, equipment and people are grouped according to their function. Now, this type of layout is going to work especially well in the make-to-order shops due to their flexibility advantage. Product layouts, and in a product layout, one type of product is produced in a fixed sequence and it is arranged according to its production requirements. It is efficient for large volume, make-to-stock operations in which we're going to mass produce products quickly, and you've probably seen this or heard of these. This is usually where we're going to use an assembly line. Now, while advantages for large volume production, a disadvantage is inflexibility when changes are required, because we've already got our operation in place, and if we need to make a change, we're going to have to change out this layout. And then with our third layout we're going to talk about, this is our fixed position layout. And a fixed position layout is necessary when, because of size or even shape, or maybe there's some other reason, managers cannot move the service to another production facility because of that fixed position. If we take a look here at this example of a process layout of a service provider, let's just and you can see this is medically, kind of like a medical clinic. The path taken through the facility reflects the unique treatments for a patient's visit. So based on where they enter and then which area they need to go to, this just kind of shows the process layout for them to do that as a service provider. And you can see once they're done, they come through the pharmacy and then they can leave. So a lot going on in this process layout, but it's necessary for us so we can see that flexibility advantage. Whereas if we were doing a product layout such as an assembly line, this wouldn't make much sense at all because it's all over the place. And a good example of that product layout is here with a typical car wash type setup. You can see how the cars go in and the flow is just smooth. It's like an assembly line. It's just going from one stage to the next until the process is over and the customer exits. We also have another example here for goods being produced. You can see how this assembly is just one step at a time. You see there's several tasks being done, different workstations and multiple tasks that are done at those workstations, but it's very systematic and it's very smooth. We'll also take a look at a flow chart here. This is for like checking out at a hotel. This would be a process layout as an example, or if you just want to take a look, this is just how very systematic it is. Flow charts are great tools for us to use, whether here as we're talking about operations, just another example where you can do this. And we'll go through lots of different flow charts and different layouts, whether it be process layouts, product layouts, or whatever, in your career as a manager. So let's move on and talk about quality planning. Any complete operations plan must ensure that the products are produced to meet the firm's and our customers' standards of quality. And really, quality is just a combination of those characteristics of a product or service that bear on its ability to satisfy stated or even just implied customer needs. Performance here is going to refer to how well the product does what we have intended it to do, what we are saying that our product can do. If you are making a nail and you say that it can stand up to 18 foot-pounds of pressure to be inserted into a pine board, and it bends with much less foot pressure, then you did not meet the performance expectation of what you said your product can do. Now, consistency is going to refer to the sameness of product quality from unit to unit. Are we doing the exact same thing, and is our product coming out exactly the same way every time it's produced? Very important that you are looking at these dimensions when it comes to quality planning. I'm sure if you've never been part of a quality audit or anything like that, when you get into an organization, you're going to find out how important quality is and all that goes in to making sure that you meet these quality dimensions. Now let's move on to talk about operation scheduling, which is going to involve developing timetables for acquiring the resources needed for you to produce. A couple of terms here that are very important are master production schedule, detailed schedule. We've got staff schedules and computer-based scheduling we'll talk about. Now with the master production schedule, this is a top-level production schedule which shows which products will be produced and when in different upcoming time periods. Essentially, it's your game plan for getting your products produced. Detailed schedule indicates daily work assignments with start and stop times for assigned jobs for each of our workstations. Now, I mentioned staff schedules. Staff schedules are going to specify assigned working times in upcoming days for each employee on each work shift and consider employees' needs and the company's efficiency and costs. And it's going to include the ebbs and the flows of demand for production. Computer-based scheduling can handle multi-shift activities for many employees, both part-time or full-time, whatever the classification is. And it's going to also accommodate vacation times, holiday adjustments, any type of daily adjustments that need to be made in staffing for, let's say, things such as unplanned scheduling. So this computer-based scheduling really helps us as managers. Now when it comes to something much larger, this is where we're going to use project schedules. And there's a couple that I'll talk about with project scheduling, but let's take a look at an example here. Now here's just an example of a partial master operation schedule, which I talked about. These are it's going to show which products are going to be produced and when in specific time periods, as you see here on this chart. Here we have another example. This is a food retailer's partial operation schedule. You can see here what's listed in this, which key resources we have, when and where, which quarter and which year things are going to be utilized. You can see that we have our number of stores that we have. You can see that we're going to have some growth over the next couple years or the next year, and how much we're going to grow in each year. how we're going to increase our staffing level, those employees that we employ. And you can see as we move up in the amount of stores we have, we increase our employees. And same thing with how our resources are going to change as we increase those number of stores. But we have it on a schedule, so we have that detailed information in. Now, I said I'd come back to project scheduling, and because these are what we use for much larger products and just those are much detailed scheduling other than those other types of scheduling. And we have a couple tools I'll just talk about real briefly here. Henry Gantt created the first one, and that's the Gantt Chart. You, as a manager, you will definitely come across many different types of Gantt charts over your career. And what they do is just break down large projects into steps to be performed and specifies the time required to perform each of those steps. And they get very detailed, but they help us make sure where we're at along the way. And when it comes to project management, this is just key. So definitely familiarize yourself with Gantt charts. They can be done in Excel. There's other specialized software. Microsoft Project's probably the biggest one that you'll come across, in which we can take a project, break down the steps that need to be performed, and then specify how much time needs to be performed for those major steps and then the activities within those steps, so we make sure we have defined deliverables and if we're meeting those deliverables or not. The next one we have here is the PERT charts. These are going to break down large products or projects into steps to be performed and specify the time required to perform each one. Just another example of a project scheduler. PERT also shows the necessary sequence among activities from start to finish and identifies the critical path, which is the most time-consuming set of activities for completing your project. And you do these paths and decide which path it will be more efficient. So if we take a look here, an example of a Gantt chart, you can see how we have our steps listed, and if we go over into our calendar there, we can see how long it takes to complete each of those. And we also break down as we can see what's been done and how much time's been allocated for tasks just by looking at this. And there's, like I said, different tools you can use for this. In our PERT chart here, you can see how it shows the critical paths, how much time it takes, and so we can see what our best choices are and our most critical path, our least critical path, just based on this finished product of the PERT chart. And this one here specifically is a chart for renovating a classroom. And the project's 9 activities and times required to complete them are going to be easily identified here. Each activity is represented by an arrow, and the arrows are positioned to show that the required sequence for performing those activities. And we can see that we have a definite beginning and ending of each activity and how long that takes. Now let's talk about materials management. Now materials management, very basically, to put it in easy terms, it's just the process by which managers plan, organize, and control the flow of materials from our sources of supply through the distribution of finished goods. That's it. It's just a process by which we are going to plan and organize the flow of materials from when we get it from our suppliers all the way through to getting those finished goods. Now the management activities for physical goods has 5 activities that determine the successful material flow. And those are going to be supplier selection. This means finding and choosing suppliers of service and materials. You'll hear the term purchasing, but the more used business term is going to be procurement. So this purchasing or procurement is the acquisition of all the raw materials and services that our organization needs to be able to produce those products. Transportation is the means of transporting resources to the producer, and once we have those finished goods, transporting those, getting those to the buyers. Warehousing is the storage of both incoming materials for production and finished goods for distributing to our customers. So we're always talking about warehousing. Another term you'll hear is inventory control. And inventory control is going to include the receiving, storing, handling, and counting of all of our raw materials, our partly finished goods that we have on hand, and our finished goods. And you will find that, especially in manufacturing, that you will have an inventory that needs to be completed yearly. It just depends on the organization. If you've ever been to a grocery store and you see a bunch of people walking around with scanners and they're putting labels on there, it says like "Do not inventory," that's what's going on. And they're going through their inventory control process to see what they have, what they've received, what they are storing, as well as, things that are going out. Let's talk now about lean production systems and JIT, or just-in-time production. Lean production systems are designed for smooth operation flows that avoid any type of inefficiencies in the process, and they eliminate unnecessary inventories, and they're going to continuously improve production processes. That is lean production or lean manufacturing. We want to get rid of any unnecessary inventories that we've got on hand, so we don't have a bunch of stock sitting around. We want to get rid of any type of inefficiencies in our process, and we want to keep looking at our process and finding ways to improve it to make it more efficient. Just-in-time production is a term that's been around for a long time, and it's a type of lean system which brings together all of our needed materials at the precise moment when they're required for each production stage, not before, and this will allow us to create a fast and efficient process to our customer orders. We don't have a bunch of material on hand. We get the stuff just in time to when we need it, and then we get the products out. Now let's talk a little bit about quality control. As I said earlier, quality is something you will be part of and understand that how everything needs to be part of the quality process. But quality control means taking action to ensure that all operations produce products that meet the specific quality standards. This is key in every organization, making sure that you put quality into everything and that everyone realizes that all parts of the process affect quality. We need to be able to control all of that so that our end product, whether it be a service or a good, is going to meet those quality standards that have been set by the organization and, most importantly, our customers. So everyone in the organization must use monitoring services throughout the organization so that managers and other employees can quickly detect mistakes and even faster take care of any type of corrections that need to be made so that we don't lose or get out of that quality control that we've got set in place. And this, once again, is another thing when it comes to making sure that we're always looking for improvements in our organization and in our processes. Now, a couple good terms here. We want to talk about productivity. Now, productivity is the amount of output produced by the organization compared with the amount of resources used to produce that output. Now, it's not enough to control quantity by inspecting our products and monitoring service operations as they occur. We, as managers and our businesses, must also consider building quality into our products and services. That we know it's not any secret that quality and productivity are watchwords in our very competitive environment. So we need to be able to compare how much we produce using our resources and how we produce it. The more we can produce while using fewer resources, the more productivity grows and the more everyone's going to benefit. So remember, productivity refers to both the quantity and quality of what's being produced. Regardless of what we're doing in any organization, we're always going to be managing for quality. And we've got a couple tools here when it comes so that we can manage this quality. We'll talk about the first one here, which is TQM, or Total Quality Management. This is going to include all of the activities necessary for getting quality goods and services into the marketplace. And this process is going to involve all parts of the business, including our customers, our employees, and our suppliers. To bring all the interests of the stakeholders together, Total Quality Management is going to involve evaluating costs of poor quality, identifying the sources causing that unsatisfactory quality, assigning responsibility for corrections, and ensuring that those responsible take the necessary steps for improving the quality. Now, when it comes to the cost of poor quality, products or producers of goods and services are going to suffer financial distress from poor quality service or products. That's common sense, right? Now, with total quality management, or TQM, employees and suppliers ultimately accept quality ownership. That idea that quality belongs to each person who creates it while performing a job. This is called quality ownership. I know that I am part of the process, and that while I'm performing things, I need to make sure that I take ownership and responsibility to not only ensure quality, but to try to improve quality. Now, there are hundreds of tools that have proven useful for quality management, ranging from statistical analysis of production data to satisfaction surveys that we send out to customers, have them complete, to competitive market analysis, which is just a process by which a company analyzes a competitor's products to identify any type of desirable improvements. Now, 5 of the most common used tools for TQM are going to be value-added analysis, quality improvement teams, getting closer to our customers, the ISO standard series, and number 5 is business process reengineering. Now, value-added analysis refers to the evaluation of all of our work activities, all of our material flows, and paperwork to determine the value that they add for our customers. Quality improvement teams are groups of our employees from various work areas who meet regularly to define, analyze, and solve common production problems with the goal to improve both their own work methods and the products that they make. And every few years, a different term comes around for a quality improvement team. You will come across several over the years in your management roles. And I'll conclude here with a term that may rub some people the wrong way because it's affected a lot of businesses over the last couple decades. But it is a business strategy that we put in place as management to look for the advantages. And that's the term of outsourcing. Outsourcing is a strategy of paying suppliers and distributors to perform certain business processes or to provide needed materials or services. Global outsourcing this creates new operations jobs for supply chain management, and sometimes the need for more or different types of employee training. Outsourcing is a process that, if it's something that's cheaper that can be done out of house, or maybe we can't produce that or provide that in-house, we need to find someone who can. And that's where outsourcing comes in place. So this decision to outsource is going to expand our supply chains. The movement of manufacturing and service operations from the U.S. to other countries like China or Mexico has reduced U.S. employment in traditional jobs, but it's also created new operation jobs for our supply chain management. So you'll probably mainly just hear about negativity of outsourcing, but as a manager, we also need to look at the benefits and sometimes our only opportunities to be able to make sure that we are getting our operations management flow corrected and being more efficient so that our end customers are going to benefit and we stay competitive. Well, that is it for this discussion on operations management and quality. I know it's a very lengthy one, but there's a lot of material to cover, and I hope you were able to take something away from this, and I hope you continue to follow me in my Introduction to Business series.